record. Okay, here we go. We are officially recording for the August 12th, 2024 State Health Assessments Steering Committee conversation. We are thrilled to have y'all here. Little dog below. We have a packed agenda today, so I'm going to start us off. We do have oh my goodness. We do have a Spanish captioner available, and we have built-in captions in English in the meeting. So hello, welcome. There are instructions for how to enable those in front of folks. Next slide, please. Welcome. Welcome to the steering committee meeting of August 12th, 2024. This is Jamila speaking. Next slide. Today, we have a couple OHA staff supporting this meeting. We have Sarah Boudreau, Rose, Jamila, and Victoria's not with us today. Not pictured, we also have Nita, who will be presenting later on, and Dr. Dean Seidlinger is on the committee, and he'll be presenting a little bit later on. Next slide. I am so excited to express a warm, robust welcome to new committee members. Yay! Hello, and thank you for joining us. Pictured, we have Ms. Cheryl, Lourdes, Jackie, and Christine. Next slide, please. But there are more folks. Christine, Lourdes, Evelyn, Todd, Cheryl, Cece, Jackie, Jacqueline, Hannah, and of course, Whitney joined us last month. And we're so thankful to have so many folks joining this conversation. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're joining at a great moment. We're thrilled to have you and really dig in and do some of this hard, exciting work for the state of Oregon and looking at the future we all want to build towards. Next slide. Also, welcome to our facilitators. Would you like to introduce yourselves, facilitators?
Sure, thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Kirsten Gunst from Metropolitan Group, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Deborah Clark, excuse me. For those of you who are new to these calls, Metropolitan Group is a strategic communications agency, and we work on social impact projects, especially in the public health space. And we're supporting OHA with meeting facilitation and strategic support for this project. So you'll see us pop in as facilitators and strategic counsel at different parts of this process. So we're thrilled to be here today and also to see all of the new folks who are joining us. Next slide, please. I'm just going to quickly go over the agenda for today. As Jamila said, we have a packed one, as always. So today we'll start with our group agreements, as always, to ground us in our time together. We'll go into a relationship building activity. We're going to start talking about the state health assessment strategy, meeting strategy, and meeting follow-up. We'll do a recap, again, just to ground everybody, especially for those who weren't able to make the last meeting. We're going to be discussing the in-person meeting in September that we've been planning for. We have a little bit more details on the agenda and some logistics for that. We will pick back up on our mission, vision, and values discussion. We'll have a brief break, and then we'll go into a data and assessment discussion. Next slide, please. So again, just grounding us in our group agreements. We revisit these every meeting, and we always welcome additional thoughts and input from the group for consideration. So first we have, next slide, please. Thank you. We have lean forward, lean back, Share the space together, allow room for different opinions. Don't be afraid to share your perspective. This is a judgment-free zone. Next, we have curiosity is queen. Be open to continuous learning along the way. Next, we have explain and unpack jargon and acronyms. I say this every time, but we try so hard to steer clear of acronyms, and they always tend to sneak in. So as much as possible, we will try to hold ourselves accountable for that. And also, please ask questions if something isn't clear. Next, we have be present and be authentic. Show up as fully as you can in the way that's most comfortable for you. That might be being on camera, being off camera. Just please feel comfortable in whatever way you can bring your best self forward today. Next, we have honor all experiences and expertise, appreciate others as human beings with abundant and interconnected experiences. And then finally, we have extend grace to each other and to ourselves and always assume best intentions. Next slide, please. So now we're going to go into a brief relationship building activity. This is just an opportunity for, we're going to be in groups of about 3-ish people. This is just an opportunity to Jamila, I think I'll turn it back over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. This is Jamila, and I neglected to practice one of our accessibility practices, so I'd like to apologize. This is Jamila. I use she, her pronouns. My visual description is I'm a white person in my 30s. I have dark hair. I'm wearing glasses. I have a painting in my background and plants. As we're welcoming a whole bunch of new folks, I just wanted to take this opportunity to do a bit of grounding and some of the things that we're looking forward to and reflecting on some topics that came up in our most recent meeting. And discuss how we are going to navigate this together. Genuinely, my role on this project is being the person to help make the steering committee the best, most meaningful experience possible and engage you all in a thought partnership with this work. So with that, I'm going to give some realness around some things we can't change. So we have 4 regular meetings after this meeting. We have the September, October, November, and December meetings ahead of us. We have 1 in-person meeting. This means, including all of that, we have roughly 16 hours together this year to do this work in the bigger group. We're going to talk a little bit about some side quests we can do. We're going to host a space doing a deeper dive into data and a deeper dive into community engagement. But just as we're working this through, I want to keep our eye on the prize with some of this time we have together. Next slide. Okay, and here's what we're hoping to accomplish in 2024. We're hoping to accomplish finalizing the mission, vision, and values. We're hoping to take some time and review the starting point assessment. This is going to give us some insights and open up conversations about lessons learned and what happened with the last ship. Next. We are going to review some key indicator data points. That's going to happen in the second part of this meeting, but we're going to keep going throughout the rest of the fall. We're going to establish and host a community engagement ad hoc group. I will be hosting that, and I anticipate that group will be meeting twice a month for the next couple of months. We have a lot to talk about. Next step, we will establish and host a data and assessment ad hoc group. The folks doing the presentation later can tell you a little bit about that. I believe it's going to meet once a month after these meetings to do a bit of a deeper dive. Next, we are also trying to be really transparent that in the background, we will be composing and drafting the state health assessment. So this, as I've mentioned to folks, this is part of the requirement for our public health accreditation. So it's a big document where we're going to be pulling in data from multiple sources and composing this and sharing it with you all. So just know, like Dex, we are going to be internally working on this and sharing it with you. Next slide. Sorry, I thought there was one more transition slide. So could you go back, Sarah? Does anyone have any big questions about this?
What's the MVV?
Yeah, good call. I should have spelled that out. That's the mission, vision, and values.
Okay.
That's the mission, vision, and values, and we'll be talking for about 25, 40 minutes after this about those. Julia?
Thank you. Once the OHA staff has composed the draft SHA, will there be an opportunity to review and or amend, edit, any of that?
Yeah, Sarah, can you share a little bit about that process?
Yeah, absolutely. I think over the next few months, so the data conversations that have already started and will start today, it's part of building toward that state health assessment. And we're bringing you data and having conversations about it to get your input early on your thoughts about the data, what it means for priorities, how that the issue is reflected in your own communities, what you would like to see us talking about. So hopefully it's not going to be like, now we're presenting you with a report and it feels like you haven't seen any of it before. Like hopefully there will be connections throughout. But ultimately we are looking to you all for, the framing for finding out the key or for, talking about the key themes that you want us to elevate through this process. And then we're really taking our lead from you. Does that help?
Yes, but didn't directly answer. Once you've composed the draft, will
Yeah. Yes, you all will see the draft before it is final. If people want to go in and edit, we will take your edits. We are not expecting this group to, everyone in this group to take that time to edit a document, but the opportunity will be there for people that want to. Thank you.
Great question. So very similar to sending out the charter and sending out the mission, vision, and values. It will be available to folks. We might do it a little differently because it's probably going to be a big document. But yeah, we will have some logistics conversations about that. Thank you for the question. Any other questions or things coming up for folks? Okay, very good. So this is our work looking forward. I also want to take a moment to do my due diligence and take a look back and acknowledge some of what came up in July's meeting and address some of that. Next slide, Sarah. Thank you. So one of the topics that came up, excuse me, while we were discussing finalizing the mission, a really great suggestion came up about including tribes in the mission statement. Wanted to share with everyone. We ended up having a really great conversation with TJ and chatted about a couple different ways of getting input. I know I'm reading off the slide here, but I wanted to make sure to have this information for folks who weren't going to be able to join us today. Broadly speaking, what we're going to do is we have put in a request every single month. Public health leaders from tribes meet with OHA public health leaders, and we've asked to be added to that agenda so we can do a little bit of a presentation to that group of leaders and see what their recommendations and preferences would be, so we can honor, that input kind of in a more robust way. Sarah and I will be taking that input, and we will be bringing back information to this space to share, uplift, identify the tribal leaders' preferences in how they are or are not described within that statement. Does anyone who was part of that conversation have anything else they would like to uplift related to this? I appreciate the opportunity to kind of pause and let us have some of these conversations offline and engage public health leaders. Oh, I see TJ's hand. Go right ahead.
Sorry, I'm having some issues with my cell phone. I just want to say that I appreciate the fact that this committee and the people that are in it are willing to actually have this conversation. And again, being one of the tribal representatives, or the tribal representatives that was designated to join, this committee. As a tribal rep, I just felt that, again, like I mentioned in July, that I felt that this was one of my due diligences to put that voice out there for the tribes. And like I said before, and even on the online conversation and the conversations we had in the last meeting, whether the tribes accept to be a part of this or not is, to me, is kind of irrelevant. It's the fact that as long as we give them the opportunity and the platform for them to feel that they have a voice or the opportunity to be seen, I really think that's something, to me, is an accomplishment in itself. Whether the conversations go, to that health meeting and they say, we don't want nothing to do with that, or, hey, yeah, we do. The government to government relationships I think need to be honored, and this is a good way to honor those relationships, and by continuing to strive for the ultimate goal, and that's to the betterment of all people, not just Native Americans and the people of the 9 tribes in Nara, Naya, and those urban settings, but to all people. So that's kind of my goal, is to again, that vision, those visions and mission statements were great. I just think that finding a way to add, again, whether they choose to add or not would be up to those 9 tribes. But again, just having that voice or that opportunity or that chance, like I said, gives them buy-in, especially when we're trying to get data and we're trying to get, these assessments out. And if, people see that a simple statement as they see tribes or 9 tribes or something, that Native Americans or something that's, included somewhere, they're obviously going to have a bit more buy-in, I think, to that. So I've always stated and felt that we, Native Americans have been highly underrepresented in data and in across the board in many things. So I really think this opportunity is huge. Not only for this committee, but for other committees as well, hopefully to see this and say, hey, look at what they've done. Let's see if we can do something similar down the road. So I appreciate you. I appreciate the conversations, even though when we started that meeting that we had offline with just a couple of us, like I said before, I thought like I was a school kid in trouble for saying something that I shouldn't have. But, again, I appreciated the conversations because I really think that we got somewhere. So thank you.
Thank you so much, TJ. Thank you so much for sharing and putting it out there and giving us an opportunity to talk about how we talk about these things. And I also want to name one of the weird things about government that sometimes happens is, there are these big public meetings, and um, when I say, oh my gosh, let's talk about that on the side or something like that, in my head, it's like, this is so important. I really want to understand, and like pause and like, go into that. And I recognize, I really appreciate multiple chains of feedback around somehow that it doesn't land like that. And that's my bad. So I love having opportunities to clarify and listen. When I roll up and I'm like, let's talk about this in another a space, it's the hope of learning more and being able to listen and get into some of that nuance. And um, I am continuously open to suggestions on ways to do that are like thoughtful and don't feel like calling anyone to any principal's office, because I'm not a caller to principal's office. Your girl got called to the principal's office like a lot. So, thank you. Um, any other thoughts about this specific topic? Okay. Next slide, Sarah. Other conversation points that came up. Expanding the priority population list came up, and a couple groups were named as folks wanting, I'm just going to use older adults. I heard from multiple folks that there was an interest in adding older adults to the priority population list. And I also heard an interest around renaming the list. Both of these topics came up, and I committed to looking into them. I have asked some of our experts on staff about these, and their response was, yeah, we'll definitely see what we can do. But can we wait? Can we look at the data so we can make informed decisions as a group about whether there are more groups that we as a group want to name as a priority population as we go through this exercise, about expanding it? So that was the answer there. Like, yes, we can expand the priority population list. Let's go through the data and see what else crops up. That was the response to the first one. And the renaming the list, the subject matter experts asked that I share with the committee the request to go through some of these data sources and see how and where it's used, and the potential implications of changing the list name and getting just some context around that. We can do it, and there are ways that we can name injustices or concerns about terms like priority population in our wording, and we can do that. But they requested that we, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry if you can hear that dog. They requested that we pause and talk a little bit more about some of the context. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, I see a hand.
Yeah, I'm wondering about how were the priority populations created in the last SHA? Like, was it just everyone, we all had a conversation, and this is how, because that was my understanding when we had the conversation last time, or the last few times when we talked about priority populations. It was my understanding that essentially what happened is that you had people who were part of the SHA express what they're seeing within their communities, and then that is how the um, priority population list was generated. So now we kind of went, sort of the same route where you have a bunch of people who are coming to the space and expressing this is what we're seeing in our communities. And now all of a sudden we have to wait on data. So I want to make sure that I'm not misunderstanding how the process happened or worked last time versus this time. And I'm not opposed at all to looking at the data, because I'm fairly certain that the data will show that there are several other groups and populations that must and should be added and ought to be added, because they are very clearly disproportionately impacted in our state, and they are not being included in a lot of the work that's being done. And I think in some areas, even, I don't want to say just not included, but excluded, kind of like deliberately excluded in some way or fashion. So I just want to clarify, how did that happen last time versus this time? And I just want to make sure that I'm on the same page here.
Mrs. Jamila, thank you for that great question and opportunity to clarify. I will tag in our SHA historian, Sarah.
Thanks, Jamila. I'll do my best. I didn't introduce myself the last time I spoke. I apologize. I'm Sarah Boudreau. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm with the OHA team, work with everyone that is working on the State Health Assessment and Improvement Plan. Alicia, I think last time it really was a combination, because that group also was looking at our public health data, seeing how we can look at our data by different groups and understand where disparities and inequities exist. And it was a conversation about people thinking from their own perspectives and experiences and bringing that forward. So I don't know if that's helpful. It certainly was not we're only going to rely on the data, but data was a part of the conversation when they did that a few years ago.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm just making sure that this is going to be an equitable process, because I mean, if now we have several people coming to the space and saying that, well, this is really what I see in my community and the population that I represent, and we do have the the data to back it up and to say that, yeah, this population should be added as a priority population, then again, like I said, I don't think that, especially the couple of priority populations that have been mentioned over the last few meetings, I don't think that there's going to be an issue with actually demonstrating that there is a disproportionate impact. To me, it was just I want to make sure that we're not just saying that, oh, we don't know if we want to add these populations until we look at the data, because it just creates a lot more work and a lot more pushback from other priority populations that are already established, right? So I want to make sure that that is not what we're doing here, versus we are simply looking at lived experience, right? Bringing the voices from the community to this level and then backing it up with the data.
This is Jamila. Thank you for naming that. And I can promise you, you don't know me. We're working on building trust, right? And I can absolutely guarantee in no conversation and space I've been in, have any of us expressed concern over adding to whatever we're going to call this list, because it's more work. You know, we also understand like the carceral population and people involved in the what is sometimes called justice system. They have disproportionate health outcomes. So I would offer that I appreciate that being called out and brought forward. And part of what I'm hoping we can do is figure out how we create a system of tracking these topics to work through as an ongoing fashion to interrupt biases that may play out unintentionally, right?
I appreciate that.
For sure, for sure. And um if you would, next slide, Sarah. Part of what I'm suggesting we do, other committees have used this. It's kind of, they call it an issue topic log. I commit to every single meeting capturing things like this and writing down what came up. Notice it in the here and now, I'm not putting any names beside like mine. What came up in the steering committee, the date, what was done, and I'll be updating this and some of the status. And I plan to share this on a monthly basis to the steering committee, kind of in an act of like transparency. Here's what's going on. Here's what I, Jamila, learned. And I wanted to get folks' thoughts on that. Oh, thank you. It's me, subject matter expert. Yes, thank you. Okay, cool. So this is going to be a living document. Y'all are going to have the copies of it like after meetings, before meetings, like, and it'll be pretty. I don't believe in, keeping these things like in the background. So this will be a living document and it will be something occasionally I or another facilitator might say, I'm adding that to the issue topic log. Just kind of as like a placeholder in terms of facilitating. I'm adding this to the issue topic log. We're going to connect offline about this and report back. Or is this something we can add to the issue topic log and have continued conversations about? Okay, cool, cool, cool. For sure. Thank you. Yeah, and it'll be a Excel spreadsheet. Excel does not do spelling corrections, so work with me here. I am a millennial who cannot spell. I'm going to really try. All right, next slide. And I know we're off some of the agenda time, but I really do think it's important that we equitably and transparently like work through this together. So topics are going to come up. We're going to have disagreements. I've done a lot of conversations with folks about this meeting space, and some of the things that are going to come up are really going to be deeply philosophical in nature, where we make deeply philosophical choices. So I have offered the issue topic log as one of the ways to handle topics and really make sure we address them and track them. I'm happy to, if folks are interested, host an office hour the day after the meeting to debrief and kind of process some of what happened in the previous meeting. I'm happy to have, like TJ and I, we had an we had a smaller meeting and then we reported back. I also am hoping to do one-on-one meetings. I've been I've been quite busy recruiting, but my calendar is going to be opening up. So these were some of the suggestions and thoughts we came up with. I would love to hear responses, and it doesn't have to be right now, but when you all think of how you have done committee work that has some deep philosophical underpinnings, ways of doing it, I'm happy to hear. Alicia, I see your hand.
I want to give space to other folks. If other folks want to go before me, I'm happy to step back for a second and then give my feedback after.
I'm just going to name in the chat. I see a couple folks interested in having a debrief meeting, time and space for one-on-ones. There's interest being expressed in the chat for that as well.
I guess I'll just chime in real quick. I think a combination of all of those would be wonderful. And I think especially when we start to have the kind of like the subcommittees, the data and then the engagement one. I think within those spaces, there are probably going to be a lot of those philosophical discussions as well. And we would probably have some additional time to discuss them in those area or in those spaces as well. So of course, being mindful of, y'all's time and capacity, right? Understanding that this is a huge task and huge ask. I do think that a combination of those and kind of, going, seeing how a meeting goes, and then if it's one of those meetings that was really heavy, that, maybe we could have a debrief after that, even if it wasn't scheduled. Or if one is scheduled and it was an okay meeting, I mean, we could totally, just reschedule that debrief. Things like that. I think I'm hoping that could then also alleviate some of the stress on y'all, but still allow all of us to provide more in-depth feedback.
Thank you. Thank you. Julia?
Yeah, thank you. Just some sort of 2 cents that came up for me. I'm really interested in these meetings being places for us to listen deeply to each other and not contradict or argue over thoughts and opinions, and to follow the protocol of like really leaning in and hearing people. And so I appreciate having these suggested, opportunities for when we might really disagree with our fellow committee members to voice that in a safe space. Yeah. And just, feel like we are heard and not hurting anyone.
This is Jamila. Thank you. Well said. And a lot of this work is going to be looking at the looking at the health of Oregonians and people who live in Oregon is innately complex. And looking at what we hope for the public health division and the channels of power that we have within our grasp, looking at how we navigate that is going to be complex. So how we lean into relationships and intent around that is going to be really key, in my opinion. I will get back to folks and make some suggestions. Transparently, like my entire job right now, all of my worky hours are dedicated to uplifting the steering committee work. And really, like, you got me full time. With that being said, I am also doing the community engagement component, and I'll be hosting those 2 meetings. So we will go back and really take a hard look at what we can transparently commit to. But I imagine hosting a kind of a debrief after a day or 2 after space will likely be something we can absolutely do. So I am not going to make any promises in the heat of the moment because I've learned some lessons around that. But I anticipate getting back with some offerings around what we can do. Anyone have anything else coming up? Thank you so much for being in it with me for this. Next slide. Here we go. This piece I'm not actually talking about.
Would you like me to jump in?
Yes, please. Sorry, I couldn't remember.
So we just wanted to share some updates, as we mentioned at the beginning of this call, around the September in-person meeting. Thank you everyone for who filled out our little feedback form to help us kind of figure out where the most convenient location for this first in-person meeting would be, what the timing would look like. So we just wanted to share some of those updates. First of all, just a reminder that our objectives for this in-person meeting is to really lean into relationship building and building community with one another, which we all know is hard to do over Zoom. And so this is a really great opportunity for everyone to come together. Also, we're going to get really clear on clarifying specific roles of the steering committee. And also, this is going to be an opportunity. I know we've been talking the last couple of meetings a lot about mission, vision, values, and we're getting so close to getting there. And this is going to be a great opportunity for us to start to bring our mission, vision, and values to life through some different activities that we have planned, activities and discussions. And then we will also be diving more into the data and the impact it has on this process. So that's just a really quick overview of the agenda. So it looks like the date that worked best for most folks is going to be Monday, September 16th. We're looking at a 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Day together. We are going to host a casual dinner on Sunday, the night before, which is optional. And again, that's just another great opportunity for everyone to get together and start to get to know each other. We're going to be holding the meeting in downtown Portland. It's actually at the Metropolitan Group's Public Will Building, which is conveniently located next to public transportation, hotel options. We are also, following this meeting, going to be putting out an additional form just to get some more feedback from you all on important things like, dietary restrictions. We'll be asking some specific questions about travel arrangements so that we can help figure out mileage reimbursements. The state has different mileage reimbursement requirements. So gathering this information now will be really helpful for us to be able to reimburse everyone in a timely manner for your participation in coming to the meeting. So more information is coming soon. Please look for that follow-up form that we're going to be sending out later this week. And feel free to reach out with any questions, or if you have any questions at the moment, feel free to come off mute or put them in the chat. All right. I think we are going to go into our break, our 5-minute break, which we are actually right on time to hit. So if everyone wants to stay connected, but turn off your cameras, go get some water, take a stretch break, and we'll come back together at 11:10. Thank you. Vision and values. And with that, I will turn it over to Deborah.
Thank you so much, Kirsten. Thank you, Sarah, so much. Need the slides to guide me. Thank you so much, you all. Thank you, Jamila. Thank you, Sarah, for extending the space so we can talk about a lot of important things in order to continue this committee how we need to. If you have been a part of this committee since inception, this is another meeting, another discussion of mission, vision, and values. You might be wondering why we're harping on this. It's very important to get it right. So we do appreciate your commitment to this and your patience. And I also want to acknowledge we have a lot of new folks that joined us. Jamila did send out the mission, value, and vision document, but I do want to give just a very brief context of the purpose of the mission, value, vision, and values for people that are new. So I'm just going to read what's in the document. And if you're looking for more details of work we have done to date, that's also in the document as well. So an overview of mission, vision, and values. Defining this helps the state health assessment steering committee, helps us to see the bigger picture for where we want to end up and our approach to the work. It is a guidepost. It's our guidepost. It helps distinguish the committee's collective work of developing the state health improvement plan, aka SHIP, from the work you are already doing in your community and for the organizations you work with. Defining these together offers an important anchor, if you will, to the work ahead and is the one you'll continually draw on throughout the process. So those 16 hours that we have left for the year, like this is the guidepost that we want to go back to. So just a reminder, or for those of you that's new, a meaning of mission, vision, and values. And then Sarah, you don't mind advancing to the next slide for me, please? I think the next one. Thank you so much. So values, what we stand for, the guiding beliefs and principles that drive our decision-making and work, our guideposts, as I just mentioned. Mission, what we do and for whom, the map, and vision, where we hope to be in the future, the destination. And so we kind of talked about this a little bit at our last meeting. We only had time to workshop the mission statement again while we're still here that we have been co-creating across several meetings. We had a good discussion around some of the language used in the mission statement, such as removing the word priorities and using a term such as health focus area instead. And as Jamila mentioned, there are also conversations happening about how to best uplift this opportunity to tribal health leaders. So we will revisit finalizing that mission statement pending those conversations, and we will, of course, keep you posted. We want to give you all time to break out in groups and talk more about the values. So for the sake of time, we're going to talk about vision, but probably for only a few minutes. But we do want to get your thoughts on the revised vision statement. And so, Sarah, if you don't mind advancing to the vision slide for me. And sorry that we're moving a little faster than we would normally. This is perfect. Thank you. And so here were the original options for the vision statement. And then when we go to the next slide, you'll see the new suggested proposed statement. And the new proposed statement is just a combination of option 1 and 2. And Sarah, if you don't mind advancing to the next slide. And so a few call outs here, instead of using the term Oregonian, we use community in Oregon, as everyone may not identify as an Oregonian in Oregon. So we have to acknowledge those different people and communities and how they self-identify. And also the term access here means people-centered services. I know there was a lot of conversation about what access really means. And so we want to emphasize what access means here, and that is people-centered services. So I want to get anyone's quick thoughts here, or what are your reactions to this? Sadie likes it. Always love an exclamation. Julia, giving a thumbs up. Carrie, I'm unsure if you were shaking your head, but maybe. Okay.
I was gonna type something. I'll just say it really quickly, like people-centered services, sorry, people-centered. I'm still struggling with the word access, so I'll just own that. I don't want to hold up the group, but I want to state that I feel like it implies that people are coming to the systems, that access is really about kind of centering our services rather than centering the people. And I think this is, again, words have are open to interpretation, but like I just have been really thinking a lot about how our systems are set up for people to come to us. And when we talk about access to services, we're often talking about figuring out ways to get people to be able to come to the places where we are existing as systems. And I'm trying really hard to get out of that paradigm myself. And so I'm just going to put that out there, but I don't want it to hold up the process. And I'm happy to move forward with this if it's the group's choice.
Thank you, Carrie. And that's documented in our notes, and I'm hearing you. And I think we heard that, and that was the term that we come up with. But what I'm hearing from you, that term still doesn't really fit well for you. So we'll acknowledge that, and we do have that documented. Julie, I
This
saw.
is, I'm so sorry. I hate to jump in. Carrie, do you want to workshop something that comes up for you instead, like a reframe?
I don't need to talk about it anymore. I don't need to work through it anymore. I just wanted to say it. It's something that I'm really thinking about a lot personally and how I'm leading work in our community. And so I just am restating it.
I appreciate that. I apologize for jumping in, Deb, because I philosophically am very much with you in that systems need to be designed for people, not people designed to fit into systems.
Yes. And Jamila, no apologies needed. Julia, I want to acknowledge your comment. So I'm seeing the operative word here is member. Do you want to explain a little bit more about that?
Sure. Just member may not be the right word, but instead of each community, just to note that we're talking about individuals within a community. So, that may be all I need to say. So that we're talking again, that we're talking about individuals. I can't remember why we landed where we landed.
No, that's good. Thank you, Julia. Alicia?
What Julia just said. Pretty much same thing. Is that when we see community, we tend to lump people who look the same, who belong to kind of the same like cultural background, and then lump them all into this big, community thing, and then expect or think that everybody within that single community thinks, acts, feels, and experiences, systems the same. But it doesn't happen that way because there are so many different things that come into play when people access systems or when people seek services and so on and so forth. So many different cultural backgrounds. So it's not just that one particular, main identifiable community is then or should then determine how someone accesses a system or accesses services. And to Carrie's point, which is my original thing, is that if what I wonder is because in some of the other spaces I hear that I work in and engage with, I hear very similar sentiment to what Carrie has just expressed. And I wonder if there's a way that within the SHA we can continuously kind of demonstrate or call out that when we say access, it doesn't mean that the people have to change in order for them to get the services, but that we are expecting the system to ensure that they're working in order for individuals within their communities to have access to the services that they may need. So I wonder if there is a way that we can build that into the SHA so that whenever we can reference it, that we can say, hey, look, this is what we mean with access, not what we have been, programmed for the last like gazillion years to think access means. So I don't know.
Yes, Alicia, that is possible. If you all do look in the document, there's kind of like an asterisk when we defined how we defined access. So when we collectively agree on what that definition is, it will be listed in documents, and we will continue to elevate that as we continue to use that language also. So thank you. I'm going to move on to values because that's where we're going to spend the rest of our time here. So thank you all for your thoughts on vision. Just a reminder of our value clusters. So social justice and equity, communication and understanding, collaboration and community, compassion and empathy, personal integrity, and ethical values. So those are the clusters that we agreed on from the beginning. And now we are going to look at the proposed values statements that were formed based on the feedback. If we don't mind advancing to the next slide. Thank you so much. So anything bolded, again, as you just previously saw in the vision statement, is an emphasis on changes based on your feedback in an effort to make each value statement as clear, inclusive, and reflective as possible of the committee's guiding beliefs and principles. I'm not going to read them out here. So what's going to happen is you all were sent this document, and then my colleague Kirsten is also going to drop the mission vision values document in the chat, and we're going to break out into groups for about 10 minutes, and we would love for you all to review these and discuss any reflections, thoughts, curiosities that come up, and then we're going to come back and discuss for maybe about 7 to 10 minutes on just your feedback. So does that sound good with you all? So take a minute in the group to read through them and then discuss them, and then we'll bring you all back for a full group discussion.
I just want to flag, I don't have access to uploading files in the chat. So if somebody who does is able to pop that in, that would be fantastic.
Thank you, Kirsten.
This is Jamila. I'm clicking around and I don't think the government version of Zoom lets us do that.
That would make sense.
Did everyone receive the document in their email by chance?
This morning.
Or a better question is, who doesn't have it? Okay. So if everyone does have that document, or at least one member in your group does, can you all use that and share with each other? Does everybody feel comfortable going into the group with the document that they have? Okay. Yes. Awesome. So again, we're going to break out into groups, going to be there for about 8 to 10 minutes, and then come back and have a full group discussion. Whitney, Jackie, Juanita, so okay. Are you able? There we go.
I'm moving, folks.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Jamila. I didn't mean to call you out.
Damn it, that was a good conversation.
I was about to say, did people have a lot of fun? I'm seeing a lot of smiles, and I feel a little jealous that I wasn't a part of those conversations.
Yeah, I was
Sorry about that, y'all. I was we were at the end of well, we were in the middle of our conversation, and then all of a sudden the computer went.
Yeah.
And there that went, and I forgot to hit my mute button, and so I was still talking about the same thing in the chat room. Okay, I'm loving this group already.
And we are happy to have you, Miss Cheryl. I see, Julia, you all did not make it to values, and now I'm going from jealous to concern. And I want to hear where you all landed on the values for those of you that did make it that far to the discussion. If you have you, what were your reactions, your reflections, curiosities? Please share your thoughts. Feel free to use the chat feature or raise your hand.
Is it okay if I just come off mute? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
I was actually part of Julia's group that we did not get it to the values, but with just reviewing it on the transparency value, I feel like I still just have issues with how it says external communication is shared and available to all community members via a bi-monthly memo. I'm just concerned about how that actually looks in practice because as someone who was signed up to get a lot of newsletters from the OHA, it's really hard to stay up to date. And I know that even like us in the professional world, there are things that we miss or can't access. And so I'm just kind of then wondering how that would translate to a community member. So I feel like if that's going to be in there, there needs to be more of an explanation on how community members are going to receive that information.
Thank you, Sadie.
This is Jamila. I will be adding that to our issue log, our issue topic log. Part of our transparency, I would like to just offer as context, is we did have some staff transition in June, and some staff capacity transition. So some of what we'd hoped to do in April, hit some hard life, experiences in June. But if we're not going to do that, we should be transparent about it. And if we are going to do it, we need to do it. So I will put that on the issue log. Thank you.
Anybody from Sadie's group or another group have some thoughts around values? And Dean, thank you for that comment. We are noting that as well in terms of switching access to Can Obtain. Miss Shara, are you speaking? If you're so, you're on mute, just FYI.
I wasn't, I was reading in the chat room. Yeah. I'm not sure if we touched on the value of this document. Miss Alicia couldn't blow it up, and I'm not that great at pulling up documents and then coming back into Zoom, so I just try not to touch things. But as long as we can assess these documents through email, that is going to work for me, because I set aside time. I'm retired, and so I set aside time to read through my emails and read what's in my emails, so I can have a better understanding of what our topics are for that day or that meeting, that month. Sorry. So yeah, and I also wrote in chat, can is a great word to use, so we're not being denied anything. I think I'm following that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. And Sarah, I'm wondering if we can share the screen of the proposed value statements just for a visual for folks. Thank you so much. Julia, I had saw you dropped in the chat that values around equity looked solid to you. Thank you. Any thoughts from the group there? Feel free to just come off mute or raise your hand as I can't see all. CD, but would love to hear. Okay. I know we talked a little bit about transparency already. Is there any additional highlights that folks might have there as well? Thank you, Elijah. Jackie, is the bi-monthly memo, is it in different languages? Oishe, are you able to answer that?
This is Jamila. I think at the moment it's in English. I would love to have a broader conversation in the community. I'm going to put this on the issue tracker. I would love to have a conversation about community engagement and what strategies folks think we should utilize. And I just want to name, just because we said we were going to write a memo in April, doesn't mean if we don't think that that's going to be what works for community, doesn't mean we have to still do that. If people are still feeling it, cool. And in the community engagement space, I would advocate for us deciding what languages anything should be published in. I'm going to put that in the issue tracker. We're going to talk about it more and hopefully in that space deeper.
Thank you, Jamila. Alicia, we'll get to the collaborations one in a second. We are running up on time. And if I'm missing something, let me know. I have a lot of screens open and I'm trying to see you all's face as well. Sarah, would you mind advancing to the next set of the values statement? Is there anything that jumps out right now about accountability?
I would where it says and the it's the bullet one, contributes to the best of their ability to help OHA develop a plan informed by data that accounts for the needs of each community across the state. That seems like quite a huge task. Because as we had the conversation earlier, dividing people in Oregon into communities, I mean, there's so many different possibilities that we would have. So I wonder if rather than it saying each community across the state, we could say something as or along the lines of informed by data that accounts for the needs of communities across the state. Yeah, I don't know. I guess thoughts on that.
Just to follow up on that, this is Julia. So there's a footnote to the word community under, I think it's mission. Yes, that it says defined by place, every region and corner of the state. So there might be an opportunity here to if we're gonna footnote it under mission, it should be footnoted under vision and values, or perhaps community can be defined in that way above all of these things. I don't know what makes the most sense, but it seems like there needs to be real clarity on that word. And again, it's there in the footnote, but that's only under mission.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Alicia. I'm hearing there needs to be more clarity on what the term means, and you'd like to see it each time, not just at the beginning of the document. We are running up on time, and I wanted to give Dean the floor to at least introduce data. Alicia, I did not forget your comment about what does, I think you said collective responsibility. If you would message me more on what that brought up for you first, I'm interested in what your thoughts were. If you would just send me a message, and then we can go from there. Obviously, we're not finished here, so if you feel rushed, we are not done. There's going to be a time where we take more of your feedback and implement what we heard, and then get to a point of adoption as well. And we will keep you updated there as well. Really thank you for the time, and thank you for all your great feedback. I know there are other people that might have not had a chance to give feedback, and I also want to acknowledge that. Welcome emails of initial thoughts. I know when it's fresh, it's usually easier, or something comes up for you later, please, you're welcome to email us as we do finalize this. So I don't want you to feel like your thoughts And reflections don't matter because we do want to hear them if there was something pressing that we didn't get to today. And pass it over to Dean.
Thanks. Thank you all for your patient and really insightful comments and questions. I think there was already going to be a flavor of some of that discussion. Oh, sorry, Dean Seidlinger, he, him, his pronouns, our state health officer and state epidemiologist. I'm happy to be here. That some of the comments and concerns, I will say, that were brought up, we were certainly going to talk about when we talk about data, but this is framing that even more for me. So I'm not going to use slides because I don't want to feel like rushing through. And when we get to the time when we kind of are going to talk about the data a little more, we will use some of those slides. But I just want to kind of set the stage a little bit for what's coming up. First of all, I will be on vacation during our next meeting, and as will some other folks. So we will make sure that we have appropriate folks who can come here and continue this conversation. And I look forward to seeing all of you in person, or most of you, or those who can make it in person when we continue some of this discussion. When we put up some data, we're going to put up data from what's called our state population health indicators. So it's a historical kind of look back. This was data that was chosen to give us a picture of the state of people in Oregon, and to be able to look at those health indicators or those outcomes across geography, across racial and ethnic groups, across ages. But some of the data is better able to do that than others. And some of the data is more reflective, or communities see themselves in more than other pieces of the data. So I think I want to, when we talk about the data, we're going to contextualize it and talk about some of the strengths potentially of the data, some of what may be lacking in the data, and hear your thoughts about how we improve upon that. Do we ditch it? Do we keep it as is? But I also, the data is one piece. And I will say, as a data person, data is very important. But if the data only means something to me and my fellow epidemiologists at the state, it's meaningless. Like, if communities can't see themselves, if you are partners who utilize public health data all the time, don't see yourselves or the communities that you live in and work in and participate in, don't see yourselves in the data, it's not as useful. So, but there is some data that we have, tends to be, some survey data, some data on, diagnoses that were made in the healthcare system, some data on who's been accessing our services and what are the characteristics of them, but it doesn't tell the whole picture. So I think as part of our conversation, we'll say, okay, this is still important. And yes, it won't be the perfect data because none of our data is, but how do we contextualize that? Both from what's missing in the data, what are some inherent weaknesses in the data, but then potentially supplement that data with stories or qualitative data or other pieces as we move through this state health assessment, state health improvement plan conversation, because it really is fluid. A single indicator with its data, even if we break it down into different groups and the group shows up on the table or in the chart, doesn't mean that the group is represented in that table or chart, because they may not see themselves in the way that data was collected. And so we have to think about that contextualization. And also back to a point that when we talk about data, I know that these are people represented in those numbers and in those figures. But it may not be as meaningful to them. And just because someone may show up in a disease indicator, for example, let's say we're like, okay, this percentage of Oregonians have diabetes. That doesn't mean there were choices people made, and that it's an individual's kind of characteristics that put them in that group. How did they have access to nutritious food? Did they have access to the information about the importance of physical activity? Do they have the resources to buy that food? And could they even buy that food in their community? Did they have access to get to a provider who could talk to them about a diagnosis? So there's all kinds of things that we need to contextualize. So I think hopefully you'll see that in the tenor when we go through this data, that we want to have those kind of conversations, that the data is one piece, but it's all this stuff around it that is important. And it's our job, to go back to a piece earlier, in the staff drafting a state health assessment, for you to review, to kind of take that into account. Because I don't think we'll get to the perfect piece. We're not collecting new data. Yes, we continue to collect data, but we're not necessarily planning on collecting new data as part of the indicators themselves. But we do plan on ongoing conversations and reflecting that in our write-up for the state health assessment, but more importantly, in our informing of the state health improvement plan, which kind of follows, because they're going to come together. So that's kind of my rambling without slides, just to kind of set the stage for what we're going to talk about. But I want to be cognizant of folks' time, welcome any feedback, comments, reflections. Doesn't have to be in these 3 minutes, but in emails and things, and what we need to get on Jamila's tracker, so that we can follow up on, and then look forward to really continuing the conversation as we move forward. The good news is I don't have to make new slides for the next meeting because we didn't use mine. So. And Nita's here too. So Nita, the brains and behind much of what we're going to talk about in coming meetings in pixelated form, at least for me.
This is Jamila. This is a lot. I'm hitting launch on a super duper optional, let's do it. I committed to not committing to things in the meeting, then I'm doing a thing. If you would like to join a debrief space, I looked at my calendar. I could do tomorrow from 11 to noon or Wednesday from 11 to noon. This is just a very cash, chat about the things and debrief space. Give folks a minute, and if the ultimate time doesn't work out for you and you still want to debrief or sit with some stuff, let's find out a different way to connect. My literal entire job right now is steering committee and uplifting y'all's perspectives. Also community engagement. Okay. I am seeing the vote for sure. Thank you all for taking the time. These conversations will continue. I know I'm trying to be real about the time we have together, but they're going to continue. We're going to have more spaces to have good, nuanced conversations. And it doesn't stop because the meeting stops. This work continues. Connect with us. We want to keep moving with you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for keeping OHA transparent. Thank you. We will see you all at the September 9th meeting. That's the afternoon meeting from 1 to 3, September 9th. And then the next week we will see you in person. Thank you very much. Bye, y'all.
Have a great day.
You too, Miss Cheryl.